Submission Radio here with Titus Day here in Sydney after a pretty impressive sparring session between Robert Whittaker and Jai here. Both guys have big fights coming up. And Titus, just to kick things off, man, how did this all come together? And tell me a little bit about the relationship the boys have that sort of led into this.
So obviously they're the two probably top combat sport athletes in Australia. Jai's undoubtedly the number one, boxer.
The best in the world,
he's the best in the world, best cruiserweight in the world. Definitely the highest profile, and highest ranking Australian boxer. And Rob is obviously a legend of MMA and combat. So you've got two of the greatest combat sport athletes that Australia's ever seen. And to get them to work together is obviously just an amazing opportunity for both of them. They sparred together when they were really young, and then they sparred together.
Like around 2019 was the last one? Or?
Yeah, I mean, they've obviously both come a long way since then. Jai in particular has, he was just an up-and-coming guy back then, so his levels have increased dramatically. But amazing opportunity for both of them to just get in there and get different feels. They're both deep in camp.
Jai's defending his title in October. Rob's coming into UFC 308. But just quickly, I remember I read some headlines like back in the day, 2022. There were even talks of the guys fighting each other. Is that right?
Yeah, back in the day when Jai was, they were trying to, before Jai became world champion, they were trying to build his profile in Australia, and Rob was actually the UFC champion at the time, and there's some big talk and some big offers getting thrown around for them to fight each other. We couldn't make it happen because UFC doesn't like their champions in particular boxing outside of the UFC, so it never happened. But there was a lot of offers and talks coming from the No Limits and the Dean Lonigans and the big promoters to try to make that happen, but yeah.
Well, Rob looked great in there, man. Do you think that one day down the line when the whole MMA chapter is done and he's maybe gotten the title back, we might potentially see him mix it up a little bit in the boxing ring?
Yeah, at the end of the day, Rob, he's a fighter, he'll do anything. He's a prize fighter almost. He'll take on anyone at any time, and when we were in those talks a few years ago, they were deadly serious talks, and I'm sure he'll step in with anyone. And if the time works, the money works, and everything lines up at the end of his UFC career, he's a beast.
Yeah, man.
Can't see him turning it down.
Well, there's a lot of stuff coming up. Obviously, UFC 308. What was your reaction when the UFC accidentally posted the wrong co-main event online and everybody lost their mind thinking that the fight was off again? Did you see that? And what did you start just getting random messages out of nowhere?
Yeah, I heard about it because my phone started buzzing, and all the journalists were saying, "What's going on? What have you got any comment? Is Khamzat injured? Like what's happened? He's been moved down to 3 rounds." I was like it's not. I don't know where it came from, and then someone showed me that the post had gone up. So it was. It doesn't surprise me because actually on the UFC website they've got it wrong, and they've had it wrong for about 2 months since they announced the fight. So that's what everyone was looking at that and going off the post. But I was never worried. If they're going to drop it to 3 rounds or take it from the co-main, they're going to call us first. So I wasn't worried.
But isn't it interesting how people are so stressed that this fight isn't going to happen? I guess it's like one of the most looked forward to fights of the year. Like from you, do you have any worries that Khamzat might not make it to this fight? And if he does it, are there any sort of backups or any kind of things with the UFC to ensure that Rob has a fight if Khamzat's not available?
No, I think his injury or sickness, whatever, was legitimate. So I think if it happens again, then it's maybe you've got to ask some questions. But I've got no worries about him turning up. I think he will. It looks like he's training really hard, and Rob's had injuries in the past. He had a bad run of the stomach issue he had, and a couple other things that he had to pull out of, and they were all very serious, legitimate injuries. So you can't hold anything against Khamzat if he gets sick. If it happens again, obviously 2 strikes and you're out. But I'm sure he'll turn up. But if he doesn't, then there'll be someone. The UFC would be the ones who are worried, and they're the ones who have a backup. So there's a backup plan. We know that.
Awesome, man. I know that you guys put your hand up, right? You're like, we're fighting Khamzat. Take us into the sort of mindset here, because we were having a little chat earlier. Dana White mentioned briefly that it could be Sean Strickland next for this title, but you kind of came up with this whole strategy. Khamzat, if you beat Khamzat, the title shot is undeniable, right?
Yeah. Well, Sean's obviously taking a very different strategy. He's just sitting there and waiting, and he's probably got a legitimate call for the title. But Rob wants to fight. That's how he makes a living. And
did you guys try to fight Sean? Did you?
Yeah. Straight after the last fight in Riyadh, they said to us straight away, "Does Rob want to fight?" Like literally on the day.
Yeah, wow.
They said, "Does Rob want to fight Sean in Perth?" And we said straight, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." And apparently he said no. So that was it. And then we knew there was going to be an Abu Dhabi card coming up. Rob loves fighting there, and so he just said, "Yeah, I want to fight on that Abu Dhabi card." And they said, "Would you fight Khamzat again?" He said, "Yep, for sure."
All right, guys, before we continue, just want to quickly shout out some sponsors that make this show possible, make this interview possible. First off is our friends at Manscaped. You guys can get 20% off and free shipping with the code word submission today. Manscaped has elite products that are going to change your game forever. What about the Beard Hedger? What about the Weed Whacker? What about the Lawnmower 5.0 that keeps your balls smooth and your game intact? You can jump on Manscaped today and just browse all of the great products available. And of course, don't forget, it's 20% off and free shipping today. Go on, get some Manscaped in your life and support this program now. And guys, this month we have an exciting offer for everybody out there in Submission Radio land. That's right, NordVPN is back on board supporting the program and is offering you guys an extremely great deal. Click the link nordvpn.com/submission now to get 4 extra months free on a 2-year plan. By the way, there's absolutely no risk on Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and you guys can try it today risk-free. NordVPN lets you watch sporting events, TV shows, and films that aren't available in your region. It protects your private data like bank details and passwords. It can switch your virtual location, allowing you to save money by purchasing flights, hotels, subscriptions from other countries at a cheaper price. What about the NordVPN threat protection feature that protects you from viruses, malicious malware, and phishing sites? It's the fastest VPN in the world with no buffering or lagging. It's premium cybersecurity for the price of a cup of coffee per month. And best of all, one NordVPN account can be used up to 10 devices. So go to nordvpn.com/submission now. Try it today. Support the show. Support yourself. And now back to the interview. What kind of message do you think it sends if Rob is able to go out UFC 308, make a statement against Khamzat? Obviously, this DDP-Sean rematch hasn't been officially announced yet. Do you think there's a chance that Rob might actually be able to still get this title shot in front of Sean if it is one of those picture-perfect sort of moments, UFC 308?
Well, it's difficult to know what the UFC is thinking of what they're going to do, but I know they like fighters that are active. They like fighters that don't say no. They don't like fighters that sit around and wait. And I think if Rob goes out and has any sort of win against Khamzat, particularly if it's impressive, he will be fighting. His next fight will be for the title. Whether they slip in a Strickland fight in the meantime, I'm not sure. I doubt it. I think there's some interesting fights playing out in the middleweight division. Imavov fighting Allen.
Yep.
That's really interesting. Who wins that's going to be very close. You've got Kai Baralo, who's just killing everyone. He probably will have to fight Izzy or someone next. That he's a contender. Obviously, Rob Khamzat. If Rob beats Khamzat, there's got to be no dispute. They can't possibly ask him to fight someone else. So whether he fights next in maybe Sydney or somewhere, or whether he just fights after Sean fights Dricus, I don't know. But I think it's undeniable if Rob beats Khamzat. That he gets it. There's a reason it's a 5-round. You know what I mean? That's what they do.
As we wrap up, man, you've obviously worked with Rob for a while. He's one of the best middleweight champions. He's one of the most accomplished MMA fighters out of Australia. His legacy already speaks for itself. But what is it about Rob? What is the X factor about him that people may not realize that you maybe realized a while back through your time working with him that makes him a special athlete?
Well, I think it's two things. I think physically he's just a specimen. He's got incredible strength, just next level cardio, which most people just even with hard work you can't get. So I think he's just a gifted athlete, and he's extremely he's extremely well rounded in terms of everything that he's been doing through his career in terms of wrestling levels, black belt, jiu-jitsu, boxing. It's all the highest of high levels, but just mentally, he's just it's incredible. The way he can switch on, the way he has focus, the switch that he has when he steps into the octagon, but just the commitment to train and train and train. I've just never seen anything like it. But if you look at, I was looking at the MMA world rankings in 2017.
Yeah.
And it was literally Rob champion, number 2 GSP, number 3 Michael Bisping, number 4 Romero, number 5 Rockhold, and the whole 15. Not one of them is fighting now. You know, not one of them's in the rankings anymore. You know, I think Gastelum and Weidman are still fighting. No one else is even in there. And then you look at the middleweight rankings right now. Rob's still there. You know, Izzy's come in, had one of the greatest careers of all time, and on his way out, and Rob's still at the top. When that happened, Izzy wasn't even in the UFC. You know, so you've got one of the greatest combat sports athletes ever to come in and have his whole career in between times when Rob wins the belt. You know, so I think if Rob can get back and win the title, like he's already GOAT status, but like how do you deny that he's, you know, the greatest combat sport athlete we've ever seen in Australia?
Yeah, man. Well, I can't wait for the next chapter, UFC 308. Congratulations to you on all your success, and this was an amazing event here today, man. I can't wait to see what happens with Rob, and hopefully we get a big fight in February in Sydney. Thanks so much, Titus.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.